This is Family Time 173. Hope everyone had a wonderful spring break. We're back and we're talking about a new social emotional learning competency. We're focusing in on responsible decision making. So, to start our look on responsible decision making, we're talking about the idea of social pressures. We're all impacted by social pressures, one way or another. We've talked about this in other scenarios when we were talking about our social circles, the people around us, our environment. Those things impact us. Some social pressures are fairly innocuous. They're not real significant to how we live, how we feel, how we believe, but we're impacted by them either way, by the things that we see, by the images presented to us. A good example of that would be something like a trend, a style. I look back at maybe old yearbook photos or see things like that, and they're kind of funny. I remember a few years after I had graduated and looking back at, say, like my senior photos and thinking, oh my goodness, that was ridiculous. Why did we do that? I had the spiked hair with the frosted tips, and a lot of other guys in that era were like gelling their hair straight down, like hard, crunchy gelled hair, and it looked wet all the time. And after a style kind of goes away, after a trend passes, it's very easy to look back in that sort of next phase and think, well, that was insane. Why would we do that? Looking back now, however, I'm kind of glad that I participated in a few of the trends of that era. It makes it kind of fun because everyone goes through that. Even if you're sort of averse to those things and you really try to push back against a trend, that means you're still influenced by it because you're actively trying to go a different way. So we're all impacted by some of those things, by certain social pressures or social norms. That's not entirely bad. Some of those things don't really make a difference one way or the other. Sometimes social pressures can even be positive. When we're young, that's how we start to find our way in the world, how we start to make sense of things a little bit. And it can start with sort of an extrinsic motivation sort of approach to things when we're young, and maybe we have a consequence, a negative consequence for exhibiting a behavior that's considered undesirable, and we're rewarded for doing something that is considered a positive behavior. It's also not entirely bad. I think about that when I'm working with my own children, even working with you, students and athletes. At an introductory level, you're trying to get people kind of buying into or understanding the social norms, the accepted behaviors for the classroom, for the athletic arena, for your home. And when we're young, that's what we do. We push boundaries a little bit. We see where maybe we get pushback. We feel things out. And that's good. And we hopefully start to figure out, oh, okay, in these different circumstances, this is sort of what's accepted. We all use social norms to calibrate how we're living in the world. Sometimes we decide whether to fully accept them. Sometimes we decide to push back against them. And that is an important next step. That's where a lot of you are at now in your life, middle school to high school. You start figuring out, what do you really believe? What do you really feel about things? And that's what I want. That's what we want for you, is to become more self-actualized over time. And a lot of people, I think most people, never reach a level where they're truly self-actualized. But the idea is, if you're self-actualized, you've taken in a lot of information. You've learned a lot of things, and you've gotten to a level where you can decide for yourself, I believe in these things, I'm going to go along with this, or I think these are potentially negative things, or I disagree with these, and I'm going to separate myself from that. I'm creating my own value system, or I'm at least adopting a value system that I firmly believe in. That's becoming more self-actualized. That you're not making decisions based solely on social norms or social pressures. You're not basing your decisions entirely on rewards or consequences. You're doing those things from a deeper sense of self, a deeper sense of who you are and where you stand in the world. To be able to do that, we have to recognize the social pressures that do influence us. And they influence us in little ways every day. A great example of sort of social pressure, social cue, or us going with a social norm would be the speed limit. For driving on the highway here in Iowa, the speed limit is 55 miles an hour. I would venture a guess that most of you with driver's licenses, and probably most of your parents, whoever else you might ride with, probably push that speed limit, probably go over that speed limit, say, okay, I'm going to drive 58, 59 miles an hour, maybe 60, 61 miles an hour, and feel that's okay. That's within the accepted social norm. We have all sort of made this unspoken agreement that we can drive a few miles per hour over the speed limit, especially out on the highway, and it will be generally accepted. In fact, if we got pulled over and got ticketed for going 56, 57, 58 miles an hour, we would probably be upset, think this is ridiculous. But the letter of the law states that the speed limit is 55 miles per hour. The fact that we have decided we get this little buffer is because of a social norm, because that's what's generally accepted. So that's a good example. And we're impacted that way by a lot of things where it's like, well, this is just what everyone does. This is what we've sort of agreed upon, whether we've articulated that or not. And when things are maybe outside of the social norm, we can become uncomfortable. So that's what I want you to think about first. What social norms and social pressures impact you? It can be something simple like that, a daily life thing, like a style, a trend, the speed limit. Or it can be something more specific to you. If you have a group of friends, a social circle, there's certain pressures that exist there. And again, not all of those things are bad. If you have people in your social circle, on your team, whatever it is, who are expecting great things from you, who are encouraging you, and wanting you to come along in a positive way, that's a good social pressure. You have people pushing you in the right direction. That's how you create a positive culture, is you create positive and empowering social norms. You get people to buy into that. It feeds itself. That's what we want. But to be more self-actualized, you have to realize what pressures are being put upon you, and then decide whether or not you agree with those pressures or you're going to go along with them. Think about that this week. Until next time, much love.